A professional counselor in the Dallas area is growing in popularity for his treatment methods.
How do you talk to kids about terror? And with social media and television, it's everywhere, and it's unavoidable for kids.
Rusty Lozano is the founder of the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. He's also been nationally recognized for his work with brain mapping.
He's created a gym to work out the mind. His office features an obstacle course.
Rusty Lozano is a licensed professional counselor, helping children with headaches, with anxiety, ADHD, and more.
Here's where Lozano comes in. He teaches kids how to think their pain away with something called biofeedback.
A North Texas therapist is treating patients in this unconventional way.
We have Rusty Lozano who's joining us today. He's a licensed professional counselor.
He put together an unusual treatment for teenagers who are struggling with mental issues, except he's taking this now a step further.
Rusty Lozano, a leading therapist and pediatric biofeedback therapist based in Texas at the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. And Rusty, thanks for being with us tonight.
Rusty Lozano, a father of 4 and also a professional counselor in Texas, says it's all about being a credible resource to your children.
The Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, your dedicated resource for mental health news, views, and tips you can use. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas. And now, here's Rusty.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the Therapy Hour. I am your host, Rusty Lozano. Excuse me. Boy, it's starting to really look like summer outside. Sun is out. Rain is behind us. We've been having a lot of rain. A lot of really incremental weather heading south in Houston and a lot of floods. It's kind of scary. It's the second summer it's kind of done that. Today, we're going to switch gears a little bit. My practice, I work with patients of all different types of genders, identities, ages, and I do work with couples. And one of the things that seems to come up often is the topic of intimacy. And more specifically, sex, and what is healthy, and what is considered to be a really healthy way to interact with your partner. Whether you're cohabitating, whether you're dating, whether you're married for years, it seems to be a topic of high degree of conflict, a lot of maybe not agreeing, seeing eye to eye on things. But then there's something else going on. Sex sells in the U.S. From car commercials, women's undergarments and clothing, to the shows we watch at home and on the big screen. The sex industry is about $57 billion industry per year, $20 billion in the U.S. alone. There are more strip clubs in the U.S. than any other nation in the world. And here are the statistics. You have adult video industry, $20 billion a year. Escort services, $11 billion a year. Magazines, $7.5 billion a year. Sex clubs, $5.0 billion a year. Phone sex, $4.5 billion a year. With all these statistics, you would think that there's a tremendous amount of pressure for a couple to, especially women, to be a certain way, to try things and do things that they may be uncomfortable with. And, how does a couple know what is considered normal? What is a healthy sexual appetite? How can we communicate what we want and still be respectful of each other and each other's desires, and respectful of our manhood, our womanhood, and still not create a lot of chaos and be influenced by a lot of negativity? So here to talk about this with us today is Douglas Weiss, PhD. He is the author of the book, 5 Sex Languages. And let me give you a little bit of information on Dr. Weiss. He is the clinical director of Heart to Heart Counseling Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. Dr. Weiss is a licensed psychologist, and he's authored more than 30 books on addiction and relationships. And he's also been featured on Oprah and a few other shows for his books. And I actually read this one, and this is really good. So, Dr. Weiss, welcome to the show. Are you there?
Absolutely, Rusty. It's good to be here.
Yeah. I love the way this book reads, and it's very simple to follow, and it's, literally a roadmap to sexual pleasure.
Absolutely. I mean, if someone reads the 5 sex languages, they'll be able to have a better understanding of their sexuality, their partner or spouse's sexuality, and be able to capitalize on that information on every stage of sex to be able to take their sexuality to another level.
And let me ask you something. In your book, you say in Western culture there are far too little teachings on genuine relationally healthy sexuality. Therefore, from our teenage years onward, many of us are exposed to sexual images, information from the most unhealthy and least relationally focused sources. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, most of us learn sexuality either from other teenagers who don't know anything or from pornography who doesn't know anything. And so what happens is you begin to have object-sex relationship. A lot of young guys start with that. I mean, to the point where Time had an article on that, a cover story on how young men right now are having difficulties in relational sex because they can't function in relational sex because they're attached to an object-sex pornography fantasy relationship. So, our culture has progressively moved down the whole. I mean, if you looked at our culture, it's almost sexually obsessed or sexually addicted. It's out of control. And we're losing kind of what sex is really can be a beautiful, fantastic thing that a couple can experience.
Yeah, and and let's go back to that the pornography industry because I actually listened to an interview with Howard Stern. This is a few years back, but he actually interviewed a pornography star and asked her, "Do you really enjoy those things? Do you really enjoy those scenarios that you're put in?" And her honest answer was no. But you can't tell that. You're not hearing that when you watch things like a video that streams on a website.
That's not even talking about the sexual slavery. That's not talking about the use of extreme amount of drugs that these women use to be able to do this. It's not talking about the suicides and the other things that happen, depression and malfunction the rest of their lives. I've also had porn people as clients and have done interviews on various TV shows with porn people, and some of the stories are just horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is scary, and I think that we're going to start. I think there's an awareness that's happening, especially now that parents are becoming just as forte with electronic devices, and we're beefing up our game on knowing what these kids are up to. And so now we have an ability to really understand and see what's happening. But to switch gears a little bit, because this is a positive subject. This is not a negative taboo. This is not the sex industry. This is not the influence of lies and dark desires and things that are actually being influenced to us. This is about something really beautiful. And you said that just a second ago. This is a natural interaction with the male and female.
Sure, no, sex is awesome, but the problem is that we look at sex sometimes one-dimensionally, because it's just like give me 5 different positions, and that's going to make it happen. But see, sex is much more complicated than that. It involves your emotions, it involves your body, it involves your spirit, it involves all of who you are, unlike any other activity. And so to have a manual that deals with one facet of this particular diamond is really limited. And so what we've done in the 5 sex languages is opened up a whole other realm. So you can understand sexuality from a more holistic perspective, but how to really connect more at that level. And I have never had a client say they've not had a better sex life after using these principles.
Yeah.
I mean, and I work a lot with sexual addiction, so I've had clients who've had lots of sex and a lot of encounters, use prostitutes, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But when they learn these principles, they can have the best sex with their spouse. And they didn't realize that there was a whole other way of being sexual they could operate in.
And I think that if you can recreate that at home, you've been married for a while, and you can actually recreate the monogamy with each other, and that it can actually make things a lot more interesting, kind of spice it up.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you know what your spouse's sex language is, and you speak directly to that, you can mess them up for days because it really is resonating with the way they're designed. And once you start talking that kind of language to them, it can really, it totally changes the way it is. I had a couple in my office just recently. I know you're a counselor, and so I had them ask each other for sex kind of in a standard way, and I teach that in the book. But then I said, now I want you to ask for sex as it relates to your spouse's sex language. She's this, you're this, and I give a whole list of how to do that in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when he asked her for sex the way she, per her sex language, I mean, the response was 10 times better than we just asked her for sex just a minute ago, like, I'd like to make love to you. But when he really did it the way she needed to hear it, the energy was so different. He was blown away.
Wow. And, and I think that can actually be really monumental for a lot of couples because now it's like there's something that they're interested in. And, and you would think that a book like this would be a little bit overwhelming, but the very first chapter in this book is labeled fun.
Right, yeah. We talk about the 5 sex languages, and the first sex language I talk about is fun. And this person is someone who, wants to do different things. They're going to be spontaneous, different locations, different experimenting's okay. They like to have sex and creativity together, and spontaneity. And so this person is someone, on the positive side, that would be it. I mean, on every one of these, as we walk through the book, has a immature or kind of selfish side. But when sex is we instead of me, it can be a lot of fun.
It can be a lot of fun, a lot of exploration, a lot of growing and development. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to go right into the second chapter of this and just visit with Dr. Weiss. We'll be right back.
From the Penn Fed Credit Union Weather Center, sunny skies today, no rain in the forecast with a high near 86. Clear skies tonight, we'll have a low dropping to about 64. I'm Zach Killian, and this report brought to you by Spectrum Business.
Weather is unpredictable, so is slow phone company internet. Switch to Spectrum Business Internet with over 99.9% network reliability and get the fastest internet for the price, just $39.99 a month. Call 855-542-SPECTRUM today.
Look, you can't go a week without hearing how the Ford F-150 is way ahead, leaving every other truck choking on its gravel. And when it comes to safety, the truck that leads the pack is the high-strength military-grade aluminum alloy body Ford F-150. F-150 is the only pickup to earn both of the most important safety awards in America. First, it earned the government's highest overall safety rating, 5 stars, for all sides and all cab configurations. And now, F-150s earn the IIHS top safety pick on Super Cab and Super Crew with optional forward collision warning. The competition? Yeah, right. Just don't ask for both safety awards, because that ain't happening, pal. Let's review. F-150 is the only pickup to earn both awards. Once again, raising the stakes for what a truck should be. This is the safest Ford F-150 ever, and every other truck is history.
Government 5-star safety ratings are part of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's new car assessment program. Tests include driver and passenger front side and side barrier pull tests.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
I've got weeds on the sidewalk and ants in the kitchen.
I told Angie we could help get rid of both, and that she could even get one free.
Ace is a place to get rid of weeds and be bug-free. Emphasis on free.
Now through Memorial Day, buy Roundup Weed and Grass Killer and get Ortho Home Defense Insect Killer free. Buy 1.1 gallon Roundup, get 1 gallon Ortho free. Offer valid through May 30th at participating stores. Store stock only. See store for details. Limit 1.
Here's a quiz. Is identity theft just when someone other than you puts charges on your credit card? Nope, that's part of it, but identity theft is actually when someone pretends they're you for any number of undesirable reasons, like opening new accounts or a utility bill. Is it true that identity theft can't happen to you? Nope. 1 in 4 people have experienced identity theft. Will LifeLock help you more with identity theft than free credit monitoring will? Yep. LifeLock's proprietary technology detects a huge range of identity threats. And if you ever have a problem, one of our US-based agents will work to resolve it. So how'd you do on the quiz? Come on, how'd you really do? No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But with LifeLock, you get a versus a when it comes to identity protection. Membership starts at just $9.99 a month plus applicable taxes. Go to LifeLock.com and enter promo code NEWS to get 10% off now. LifeLock.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hello, and we are back. If you were just joining us, we are visiting with Douglas Weiss, PhD, author of the book 5 Sex Languages. Dr. Weiss, now this is kind of like almost matching personalities. Like you understand your partner's language, correct?
Absolutely. It's like a love language. You're going to have different love languages. You're going to have different sex languages. And once you understand kind of, like you're saying, sexual personality of your spouse or partner, well, then you can really kind of intelligently work that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you can actually, being a man, there's an urge, there's a desire. You are attracted to your wife, or you're attracted to your partner. You have to be able to channel that and communicate your needs in a way that is gonna instigate connection.
Well, if you're going to talk in your wife's language, you're much more likely to be successful. What happens in sex and love is we tend to think that our spouse or partner is designed like we are. So we keep trying to use our methods, but they speak a different language. So they stay frustrated, we stay frustrated, and people do this for decades, Rusty.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that. You're a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
And so this helps them not to be frustrated and actually, intelligently be lovers towards their spouse or partner for, as long as they want to be together.
And this would actually result in a lot of non-connection affection moments, right? This is where not now I have a headache, or, there's an unhappy partner because she has to continue to conform. Okay, I have to, it's a chore for me,
Well, yeah, like suppose that she's a patient sex language, and he's fun. Well, those two are two almost opposing sex languages, but they often get married.
Yeah. What's interesting about that?
If he's patient, he wants sex a certain way, one way, take your time, all that kind of stuff. And if she's fun, she's going to be really frustrated with him. He's going to be really frustrated with her until they understand their sex language and say, oh, you're just made differently than me. Okay, well, let's make some room for how you want to do it, maybe on Tuesday, and how I want to do it on maybe Thursday. Mm-hmm. And we can, flip the coin for Saturday. However we want to do that, now we can have a language to actually talk through what we're experiencing.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you something. Does this love language, the sex language, does that change in an individual?
It really doesn't. It tends to, if you get married over years, you might move towards your spouse's sex language just because you're able to enjoy that.
Yeah.
Like, let's go back to fun and patience. Well, the person who's fun may actually begin to enjoy, the 20 or 30 minutes of touching patient's back and their body before you even have sex, instead of jumping right into it, because this works better for the patient person.
Mm-hmm.
And the patient person might actually enjoy sex by the fireplace, or maybe a different type of sexual thing they would never have thought of or tried to. But if they can open their minds up to it or the body, they can say, hey, well, that actually was good. I like that. We should, maybe that we can incorporate that into our what we call ingredients into their sexual lifestyle.
Yeah, so it's almost like if you enter their personal environment, you enter that emotional state that you can actually move around within those moments. And so a person that has a patient sex language might actually start morph into more fun and trying experimentation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they might move towards it. I doubt that they'll go from patience to fun, but they might move toward at least being okay with some of that.
In the affectionate moment, correct? It's what you're saying.
It takes time. As you time and you work with each other, and if you say, "Hey, this is a team sport," that's one of the big messages. Is that sex is a we, it's not a me.
Yeah.
And the me people, no matter what sex language they are, they tend to be selfish and they tend to do it only my way, and my way is the right way, and your way is the wrong way, and you should, and they start shaming their spouses because they're different, and that's where it gets into painfulness in the relationship.
That's where the frustration comes from. My wife and I, when we were undergraduates in college, we were both psych majors, and we did this experiment and went out to a movie theater, and we had these personality cards. And the personality cards were they were color-coded. And so we would go up to couples, we'd say, hey, would you like to take a survey? And we'd separate them. I would take the male and she would take the female. And then I was like, okay, put these personality cards in order, in a particular order, strongest personality trait first, and vice versa. And then they would actually rate their partner. And then we would go back, and our statistics showed that opposites attract. Do you see that a lot? In your field?
Yeah, that's true in every area. Financially, parenting, sexually, room temperatures, food. Marriage will balance you in oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, but even in sexuality, it's not a place where you expect there to be differences, but there almost always is. And And when there are, the problem is, Rusty, they don't have a language to deal with that. Like if they're financially different, one's a spender, one's a saver. I mean, there's 50,000 books on that. And so they can learn how to work together and move towards the center on that. Have an allowance for the spending, but it stays inside the budget. Okay, that's a compromise. But there's not a language for, I'm an acceptance celebration sex language. I want to be wanted, and want you to know that you love all of me, and that all of my relationship to you is important to you during the sexual experience. Okay, well, I don't even have a language to tell you that. And so I'm just frustrated that it feels like an act instead of you really valuing me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I have a language and I say, okay, this is really what I'm talking about, that's what the 5 sex languages brings to every couple.
Got it.
And I think we're giving a free chapter to your audience today.
Yes,
so
yes.
They can start that process. And so it is definitely something that once you have a language, you can conquer it really quickly.
Yes, absolutely. And let me ask you this, though. How do you communicate those things? Is this something that's you verbally like
you
say,
absolutely have to verbally communicate it. Because what the best thing is they get the book and they walk through it together and they can say, oh, okay, this is you, this is me, okay. And then I walk them through the rest of the book where they can actually use that in the sexual environment that they create.
Mm-hmm.
How they invite their spouse's sexuality can be hugely different. What are the communications that person might desire during foreplay, and the communication during the act itself, and the communication afterwards can be very, very important. What do they need to hear during that? Like I had a couple, they flew in from another country because I do 3-day and 5-day intensives.
Mm-hmm.
We do it for intimacy and anorexia, we do it for sex addiction, and this one was for the sex languages. That's the only reason they flew from another country. It's like we are just not getting this. Okay, they were married for a couple of years, and they really wanted to have a great sex life, and they were an attractive, successful, intelligent couple. Okay, and I'm like, okay, so we talked through a little bit, and he made assumptions about her sexually that were totally wrong, and vice versa. And when we actually gave them the language, said, okay, now walk through this, talk through this tonight, and then I want you to practice this. They had the best sex even in a few days.
Wow.
Okay, and that happens a lot because once you give, reasonably intelligent people some paradigms that they can think through and start working with, they are able to put together an incredible sexual life.
Mm-hmm. It's like the playing cards are there, but you haven't really known how to play the game.
Well, they don't even know what to call the cards.
Yeah. And what would you call the cards?
Well, we call them fun.
Yeah.
Desire is sex language. That's the person who wants to be wanted. That you wanting me sexually, you wanting my sexual, you wanting me is really the most important thing for them. Pleasure for them is being wanted. So that's what's important to them. Pleasure. This is what I call the sex professor. This person they're going to learn about sexual pleasuring themselves, sexually pleasuring the other person. They want to keep growing sexually. They're kind of this ongoing sexual evolution person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, if they marry someone with the next language, which is patience, that can be a little challenging, and often is. Patience is they really like to take their time, and they like to stay within a very comfortable zone of sexuality, kind of the same thing again and again and again would be fine for them. This is a person who can eat the same cereal for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so for them, the gentleness, taking your time is really important. And then the last one, acceptance and celebration, which we kind of alluded to. This is that you love all of me, that they feel celebrated for the person they are to you, the different roles they play, and all of that. So pleasure is heightened with words of gratitude and connectivity with them for like all of who they are to you. And so once you start having the language of these cards, as you called them, then you can say, okay, I'm blue, you're green. So how do we get this together? How do we work together?
How do you communicate that? And this is something that can be learned at any age. Excuse me. This is something that can be learned at any age.
I've worked with 20-year-olds. I've worked with 60 and 70-year-olds. Because see, the reason I wrote this book, I've been putting couples back together for 30 years.
Yeah.
I work with sexual addiction, so that's a very damaging thing for couples. I work with intimacy and anorexia, which is its own another topic,
Mm-hmm.
and how they avoid and connect. And in this book, we talk about those roadblocks as well as sexual trauma. And so putting together sexuality is what we've been doing. And what I've realized over the years is that they're just different.
Yeah.
And once I understood they're different, and then getting the language for their different, I've worked with thousands of couples, and saying, okay, this is definitely a pattern. And once we can give them a language, seeing the expedited growth of their sexuality is huge. And they do it without shame, and they're not frustrated that she likes the same thing again and again and again. They understand that's who she is.
That's who she is.
She understands that he might want to have fun, or he might be, if he's a worse person for her, might be, he's the pleasure. He wants to try and experiment and do that. Okay, well, that's going to have to work together, okay? And say, okay, on Tuesdays you can experiment and fun, we can try something, but, maybe twice a week it's my way. So that we're, okay, however, as long as you can negotiate that together.
As long as you can negotiate it and actually and verbalize it and really have open communication about this.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like it's really a key card to get into the emotional state. Excuse me, I'm struggling with my allergies today.
You live in Texas, of course.
I do, and the sun is out, and I think it's drying everything up, so it's kind of what happens. The air is much cleaner in Colorado, that's what I hear.
Absolutely.
So this is really a key card into deeper affectionate state emotions, because, you think about the whole idea of copulation. The original idea is that, it's designed to actually recreate and make children and have, but then there is a whole other side that is connectivity. And we're going to discuss that when we come back from this commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
From the PenFed Credit Union Weather Center, sunny skies today, no rain in the forecast with a high near 86. Clear skies tonight will have a low dropping to about 64. I'm Zach Killian, and this report brought to you by Spectrum Business.
Weather is unpredictable, so is slow phone company internet. Switch to Spectrum Business Internet with over 99.9% network reliability and get the fastest internet for the price, just $39.99 a month. Call 855-542-SPECTRUM today.
We all know that spring showers bring flowers. You went to elementary school, you learned that one. But do those spring showers make you regret not cleaning out your gutter? The last good rain we got, did you hear that familiar sound of the water lapping over the gutter and splattering on the ground outside your window? That might actually be the sound of your home's foundation being damaged or your soil being eroded, which leads to that in the first place, or eventually. LeafGuard, one-piece covered gutter system, perfectly engineered to let the water in, keeps the leaves and debris out, and best of all, LeafGuard gutters do not clog, but if they ever do, which they won't, you can rest assured they carry a lifetime no-clog warranty.
This month, get 75% off labor and $200 Visa gift card with a qualifying purchase. Set up your free gutter inspection and estimate today and get a $25 gas card just for letting LeafGuard show you how they can make your life easier. No purchase necessary. 214-504-2154. That's 214-504-2154. Or go to their website at guttersdallas.com.
The Russ Martin Show.
I wouldn't breastfeed a child up here in our men's room. I don't know what the ladies' room looks like. You take a kid in here to our men's room up here to breastfeed, the kid's going to pray for SIDS.
Especially after what I did to it earlier today.
The Russ Martin Show.
See right there? See my a-hole? It's looking at you going, you out of the circle of trust.
Back Monday morning at 7. Talk Radio 1190.
A Napa guy knows the only way you'd give a freshly minted driver a brand new car is if he promises to never drive it. Instead, let him grind the gears and knock over the neighbor's mailbox in something a little more suited to his skill level. And with over 400,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, he can safely drive something that's nearly as old as he is. It's not perfect, but it's perfect for him. That's Napa know-how.
Colonel Sanders here to tell you that the two-piece KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And the chicken pot pie KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And the famous bowl KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And the chicken breast KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And the tenders KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And I can't believe you just listened to all that. KFC, Colonel quality, guaranteed.
Limited time offer at participating KFCs. Tax extra.
Texas. It's a big state with a whole lot of wind blowing around. What can we do with all that wind? Or what do you say we power all of our homes with pure 100% wind energy? At Breeze Energy, we're totally 100% green. We don't do coal or nuclear, and we never will. So why not go with the wind? Go to breezeenergy.com. We think you'll see we're a genuine breath of fresh air.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hi, and welcome back. We are discussing 5 sex languages with Dr. Douglas Weiss. And when we left the break, actually brought up the idea of procreation versus pleasure. Dr. Weiss, why is sex so taboo?
Well, I think because it's innately a very sacred thing, and cultures do it differently. Mm-hmm. And I think that in Western culture, you talked about it. Western culture evolved, largely through the Catholic Church, and it was kind of something they didn't know how to handle because all the guys were priests; they weren't having sex. So at least that was the idea. Mm-hmm. And so you got all these people not having sex. So you had this whole many years of not talking about sex, and that's become a tradition. And in Western culture, unless you're talking about sex in kind of an object way, you're not really usually talking about it in relationships and commitment or covenant or lifelong or purity or stuff like that. You're talking about it as far as, getting some, getting it, and getting away with. Mm-hmm. And so, the conversation since the sexual revolution has really changed from kind of sex as something that has value mm-hmm. to sex as something that is about entertainment. And sex is something about having really no value. It's no more than a handshake because, hooking up is kind of very common. And so the dialogue since the 60s on sexuality has changed significantly. And the culture's kind of gone down that whole path of that dialogue.
And it's so different in different parts of the world. I traveled abroad in 1998. I went to study in Rome with my college, and I went to Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, they have a red light district.
Right.
And so the red light district, you're walking down, and of course, like one of the main reasons that a lot of students go there is to, experience smoking marijuana legally. But they also have prostitution there. And the prostitution, the way that they do it, it's so different because you're walking along and it's like you're window shopping.
Yeah, they just stand in the window and you point to that one and say, I want that one.
Yeah, and they're
$40. Okay,
and they're glamorous, and they're like, they're amazing looking, and like you're looking at this and you're like, wow. And so then, here you're watching this. I was watching this. Here comes some young studs, and they walk in and I guess they're negotiating something, and then the curtain closes on the window, and whatever's happening is happening. And then they also have a sex museum, and so you walk, and it's the first thing that you see when you get off the train station, and you go and curious, what is this? You go in, and there's couches that look like phallic symbols, and just a whole array of collection of all these sexual things. And then we move over to this country, or we think we move the idea of having sex over here, and they just opened up a Condom Sense next to one of my favorite restaurants. I favor this restaurant called Pho. And anyways, I walk in and I go there so often they already know what I want. It's home away from home, but they actually opened a Condom Sense right next to it, and there are always people in there. Is that okay?
Yeah. Where was that?
Condom Sense. Are you familiar with?
What city are you in?
Oh, I'm in Addison.
Oh yeah, so in Dallas. Well, there's a lot of strip clubs in Dallas.
No, this isn't a.
Dallas is
so this isn't a strip club. This is actually they sell
like
sexual.
A sex shop.
It's a sex shop, yeah, and they sell all kinds of different things.
Oils, stuff like that.
Toys, yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, that's this is America. If you're allowed to buy the lease, you can put whatever you want wherever you want. I mean, is it helpful? Probably not.
Yeah.
But there's a market for it.
There's a market for it.
People are going to buy it. I mean, that's the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with someone wanting to be creative or have fun within their sexuality. I don't think that I wouldn't necessarily put it next to a kid's store or a restaurant, but that's,
Yeah, it is a little weird. That placement is a little strange because the area that I'm in, it's actually it's very metropolitan. There's a lot of restaurants, a lot of places, really nice places to shop. And so they have a few of these, and that's one of the locations that they just chose. And the other one is actually further down the street next to another restaurant. So they're just kind of everywhere. But, you look at that.
Research shows that people who have food have sex, too. I don't know.
Hey, you go and eat first, and then you go and, make a stop and I guess,
get
beef
your oils
up on.
and go home, right?
Exactly. But I think that, things like that, are they considered okay? Is it okay for a couple to experiment around and have fun?
Absolutely. As long as the couple's both consenting and they're both adults, it's totally fine.
I think I think that has to be that consensual component, because if you don't have that, then you start kind of leaning a little bit towards the deviancy. And
well, it also builds resentment in the relationship.
Yeah.
Anyone feels forced or controlled or manipulated into anything, not just sex, but even doing chores or, paying money they don't think they owe or whatever. If they feel forced or manipulated, it takes the couple down the road of resentment. And if one person stays immature in an area, and that resentment can grow over years, and it can eventually kill a marriage.
Absolutely, it can, and it can create a lot of resentment. And there's that just coming home, and it's a routine. Let's talk about your book. You identify roadblocks. What are some of these roadblocks?
Well, we mentioned a handful in the 5 sex languages, and that is, the first one is sexual addiction. So if someone's got addiction to pornography, self-behavior, behavior with others outside the relationship, that can create a huge problem in your sex life because of the mistrust, the infidelity, the duplicity of their sexuality. The second one is intimacy anorexia. This is the active withholding of emotional, spiritual, and sexual intimacy from their spouse. So they might be having sex with themselves 3 or 4 times a week, but they're not touching their spouse for weeks or months or years at a time. The characteristics are they're too busy for you, they blame you, they withhold love, they withhold praise, they withhold sex, they withhold spiritually. They also are unwilling to talk about their feelings. They use anger and silence as a way to control. They have criticism towards you. Sometimes they control or shame around money, but the spouse feels like a roommate. And the third one we talk about is sexual abuse. Undealt with or untreated sexual trauma can definitely limit your sexual experiences and repertoire in your current relationship.
I agree with that. And I've seen, actually, I've worked with patients that have had been sexually abused, and that becomes a real issue, being affectionate with somebody. It's that vulnerability and being able to be open to something like that. So it is something that you need to work through. And would you recommend people go and seek out help for that?
Absolutely. I mean, you're in Dallas, they can come see you. If they want to come and do intensive in beautiful Colorado while it's sweating hot there, they can come see us. But yeah, if I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, I'm a recovering sex addict. You definitely want to, work on these things so that you don't rob your current situation because of your past situations. And so you definitely want to address these and deal with these.
Yeah, it actually can set the tone for a lot of things, and if it's unfinished business, then it will actually come out in some other way. Tell me a little. What is your?
You don't want that. Doesn't need to happen. You can prevent that.
What do you do at Heart to Heart?
Well, we do 3 and 5 day intensives where people fly in from all over. We have lots of people from the Metroplex come here to deal with sexual addiction or intimacy anorexia, or just to have a better marriage, like we talked about the 5 sex languages. We do phone counseling. We have, I've written many books on marriage, on sex addiction, on intimacy anorexia, on other topics as well. And that's kind of what we do. I mean, I go around and do conferences and trainings for professionals. I'm also the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. Mm-hmm. So we have a certification for, guys like you who want to specialize in sexual addiction and get certified. It's 47 DVDs and 200 academic references for treating spouses. We have another one, and we just finished the intimacy anorexia training, which will be available later this summer.
So you have a pretty big training.
We got several things going that help people's lives.
What are you referring to as intimacy anorexia?
Intimacy anorexia, that shows up inside usually a marriage. It's like where the man or woman just is disconnected from their spouse, really disconnected, where the spouse feels very alone. They're begging to be loved. Oftentimes, if there is sex, it's disconnected sex, but oftentimes there isn't a whole lot of sex going on in the relationship. And that's its own thing. We've coined that phrase. It's kind of something, again, as I was working with sex addicts repairing marriages, this is another thing we discovered. Hey, there's this whole intimacy anorexia thing going on, and a lot of couples have it. Mm-hmm. And so we wrote a book and a workbook, and there's a 12-step support groups for those and stuff like that. And so, yeah, intimacy anorexia is a real deal. I mean, it's a very painful situation. I'm sure you've had couples who, we're just disconnected. We don't know why we're married, and, we haven't had sex in, 6 years, and oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So we deal with that every week.
Yeah, and you're just cohabitating at that point.
Yeah, if your relationship seems like a functionship as opposed to a relationship, you might be in a relationship with an intimacy anorexic.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. I actually know a few of my patients that are actually experiencing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so every counselor does. That's why we wrote the book on that, and we did the whole certification. I just finished taping 30 hours of training on that.
Wow.
Because counselors are seeing it, but they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And walking them through what to do with it intelligently, man, it can change a couple's life dramatically.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Tell me about disconnected sex.
Well, it can have several versions. One form of it is that the person's going to an altered state or a fantasy state. That's just where they're fantasying about others or even their partner in a different scenario. And so they leave their body and they kind of go to the fantasy world, and they're having that disassociated sex there.
So they're actually they're going through they're having
their body's present, but they're not really there.
So they're actually having sex, but your mind isn't really into your partner.
About the dishes or what she's going to do afterwards or stuff like she's not present. They're not using, like what we talk about in the 5 sex languages. They're not using communication during sexuality, which is really powerful and important, that you communicate during sexuality. This is where the guy's eyes are closed and he's somewhere else and she's somewhere else, and hope that was good for you. And so there's this absence of real sexuality, of being made love to, as opposed to just having sex.
Yeah.
And a lot of couples know the difference, and some couples are only having sex because one or both of them are not mature enough to be able to make love on a consistent basis.
And that's where the maturity component comes in, and you can discuss that. That's the disconnected sex thing I can actually see, and I think that there's a lot of things that can gum up a lot of our concepts of that. We're going to take a quick.
But anybody can have relational sex if they want to. In the 5 sex languages, I'll give your audience we're giving them a free chapter today, but I'll give them also free tips on having great sex today.
Let's do
every
that.
Every couple listening to Rusty right now, you can have better sex today if you just do these 4 things.
So hold that thought for a minute. Let's take a quick commercial break, and we're going to discuss those.
From the PenFed Credit Union Weather Center, sunny skies today with a high near 86. Clear skies tonight, we'll have a low dropping to about 64. I'm Zach Killian, and this report was brought to you by Spectrum Business.
Weather is unpredictable, so is slow phone company internet. Switch to Spectrum Business Internet with over 99.9% network reliability and get the fastest internet for the price, just $39.99 a month. Call 855-542-SPECTRUM today.
Sometimes what you want most from your car is nothing. No headaches, no surprises, no anxiety when it's late at night and you're on some distant freeway in a thunderstorm. Owning a certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz can be that anxiety-free experience on every level. You know you're in one of the safest and most thoughtfully engineered vehicles on the road. And with an unlimited mileage warranty, you can drive as far as you want for up to 3 years, with roadside assistance included. Your sense of confidence and adventure are as unlimited as the warranty itself. Now you can drive the car of your dreams and realize that nothing is everything. And during the Certified Pre-Owned Sales event going on now through May 31st, you can receive 2 years of complimentary prepaid maintenance and special financing available through Mercedes-Benz Financial Services. Only at your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer. You've waited long enough.
See your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer for complete details and limitations on certified pre-owned warranties.
Colonel Sanders here to tell you that the 2-piece KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And the chicken pot pie KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And the famous bowl KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And the chicken breast KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And the tenders KFC $5 fill-up is a real meal for just $5. And I can't believe you just listened to all that. KFC, Colonel quality, guaranteed.
Limited time offer at participating KFCs. Tax extra.
Hi, can I help you pick out some flowers?
Yeah, I need a centerpiece, but these yellow ones are too bright for a fundraising event. Do you have anything in gamboge?
Gamboge?
Gamboge.
As a small business owner, you've got enough to deal with. Let the experts at Progressive insure your business so you can focus on, gamboge. With over 30 commercial, auto, and business coverage options, we'll build a plan that's right for you.
Oh, and they need to be hypoallergenic.
Visit ProgressiveCommercial.com to get started. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
You appreciate the feeling of a clean, smooth shave from a quality blade. So why are you messing around with generic razors that cost $32 for an 8-pack when you can shave with Harry's high-quality German-engineered blades for half the price? Harry's will give you their starter set, complete with a razor, 3 of their world-famous blades, and shaving cream for just $15. And shipping is always free. We'll also give you $5 off your first order. So go to harrys.com right now and enter code 7788 at checkout. Code 7788.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hi, and welcome back to the Therapy Hour. We're discussing 5 sex languages with Douglas Weiss, PhD. And right before the commercial break, we were just about to get into some nitty-gritty. Tell us, you were actually going to discuss 4 tips for better sex.
Oh, I forgot.
The suspense is killing me.
You would get a bunch of emails. Or I would, one or the other. But yeah, the 4 tips are in the book, but let me go through them real quick. And this is for today or this afternoon or this evening or whenever you get to have a sexual encounter with the person that you're with. And that is eyes open. Keep your eyes open. Look into each other's eyes, experiencing each other's, not just body but soul. Really look at them. Look into them. Mm-hmm. Really can make your sex mind-blowing. Totally different encounter if you're used to closing your eyes. Number 2, have some kind of light on. Doesn't have to be theatrical lighting. Just simple candlelight can be fine. But enough that you can be beheld and behold the person you're with. And thirdly, nurturing conversation, especially if you know how to use the 5 sex languages, use those words. They're very powerful, but talk during sexuality. And I'm not talking about like dirty stuff. I'm talking about really nurturing conversation. And the 4th tip is say thank you. And most of us say thank you if someone opens a door or hands us a salt shaker, but after all the time your spouse or partner puts into pleasuring you, rarely do they ever hear the word thank you. So say thank you. It's just a kind thing to do. So those 4 tips can help you today have better sexuality.
And I like that because it teaches you how to reconnect with your partner. And I don't know how we all, if people do that or how they end up desensitized to these things. It could be that you're really into each other in the beginning because attraction is so strong when a relationship first begins. There's that honeymoon state, and then over the years, I guess it becomes more of a routine, or I don't know what happens, but there's always ways to rekindle that. And it doesn't mean that because you're not attracted to your partner, or I'm sorry, let me go back. It doesn't mean if these things aren't happening or if sex isn't exciting, you're not attracted to your partner, or the relationship is dim. It's just that there needs to be some maintenance.
Yeah, and absolutely. And so what you can do is if you stay engaged during sexuality actually grows over the length of a relationship. So if you're staying engaged sexually, emotionally, and connecting to each other, over the years, sex should get better, not less or so routine. It's kind of like, well, I hope that was great. Yeah, have a good night. Love you too. It should stay engaging. And every encounter is different. It's just the way it is. So you can have thousands of encounters with someone and really enjoy them your entire life.
Yeah, and that's something that you can actually start today. I mean, just dialoguing and spending the time to connect with your partner, and this gives you a great roadmap. How can people find you, Dr. Weiss?
I'm sorry, what?
How can people find you? Do you have a website?
Well, we have one for you today called it's 5sexlanguages.com /the Therapy Hour, and anyone in your audience can get a free chapter of the 5 sex languages, and that's a free thing. Or they can go to drdougweiss.com, and we have a free app for marriage tips every day. There's lots of books there that they can do there. There's newsletters. There's all different kinds of stuff for that, and they can always call my office at 719-278-3708. And, if they just Google me, they're going to find me. I'm Dr. Doug Weiss. And so that's W-E-I-S-S. You're kind of saying it in the German version, but it's W-E-I-S-S. And so, they'd be happy to connect with people. We respond to emails as quickly as we can and all of that.
And on the Facebook, you guys, the audience can go to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano on Facebook, and we have actually a link for that landing there.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so anybody
who page and do that. That's
fantastic. Anybody can land on there and actually and download the book. It's actually very rich. I really enjoyed this book. Dr. Weiss, how did you get into this?
Well, as we talked about earlier, I've been putting marriages and sexuality together for a long time. So this just gave, once we start seeing the differences, we gave it a language, it started resonating with people, and it's like, okay, this works. And once we knew it works, we put it in the book form. And the sex languages work, but we also teach couples how to set up their ingredients, what they want in their sexuality. And then one of the final chapters is how to actually set up a sexual agreement. How often do you want to have sex? Initiating it back and forth so both partners are being initiated towards and participating in that way. And so there's a lot of information on how to just do the daily exercises and connecting emotionally outside the bedroom, so that when you go into the bedroom, you're emotionally fit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really, like you said, you used the word rich. It really is. It's not a very thick book, but it's very practical, because I know couples, if in a couple hours they can go through this together, they can totally change their sexuality. And that was the goal, was to make it simple and easy to be done, because they're not going to read 400 pages, so it's very easy to read.
Yeah, it is an easy read, and I think that it goes, and these are things that you actually highlighted also, the shaming component. You want to work through that and not feel as if, well, I'm too embarrassed to ask, or or already assume that she wouldn't want to, or he wouldn't want to. This is something where you really want to open up the lines of communication, and this book will actually give you the guidance to do that.
Yeah, you don't want to read your spouse's mind, but you can, definitely in there we talk about asking. I'm amazed, Rusty, how many couples, they come and do intensives, and we have an exercise where they ask each other for sex. How many couples have never, I'm talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of marriage, have never asked the other person, I would like to make love to you.
Yeah.
They rub their heads or feet or touch the back or kind of grope or whatever.
Come on, right.
It's kind of like caveman approaches to sexuality.
Right.
And in this century, we should be able to have intelligent approaches to asking for sex.
And I think that model, just the physical initiation, the look on your face, coming on to your partner, that kind of could lead to a lot of that rejection. It could lead to a lot of those negative experiences that have now created that negative association that I don't want to. I'm too embarrassed to ask now. I'm too embarrassed to say anything. This is how I felt, and I felt so shamed that it's not something I want to try again.
Well, they haven't set up a sexual agreement, because in a sexual agreement you kind of know what the frequency is going to be, and when you are being asked, you're going to say yes, unless you got like medical reasons. And so it's a much better, efficient way to do sexuality, so that everyone, and you can be spontaneous, you can be creative, but you're kind of, with the ingredients that you guys have, you're putting that together, and you can make an incredible thing together.
Yeah, and you set that up, and now you have a routine, and you work and develop it, and you get better at it, and it's something that if you start young, if you start early, then as your relationship matures, a lot of these things will be in place. But it's also never too old you're never too old to learn. This is never an old concept. It's never too late to start this. And you work with all sorts of demographics like that, yes? Are you there?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I want to just kind of highlight with you guys is just kind of spend a little time talking to you about the importance and significance of communication with each other. So whether it be your intimate life, whether it be your finances, whether it be discussing what to do with the children, dialogue is really important. And getting your messages across, and not just assuming that the other person is going to hear you, but to actually be very vocal and express very specifically what it is that you need. I need help. A lot of times we'll ask for things, or we'll initiate things without actually, and just assume the responsibility on the partner, but not really expressing the need. My wife is really good at this. She actually is super efficient at being able to say, I need help, or I'm overwhelmed, or I feel angry about this. And so being able to put an emotion first, and then going back and then coming up with a plan really sets the tone for improvement. And so whether you're in the bedroom, or whether you're working with kids, or whether you're trying to figure out finances, it's the epitome of of keeping a relationship together. Whether it's a same-sex household, whether it's a marriage, whatever the components may be, or you're just dating. And that's one thing I really want to highlight to everybody, and really spend the time to kind of express dialogue is important.
Absolutely. And in the 5 sex language, there's actually a few pages on identifying and communicating feelings. I have another book called Emotional Fitness. So if someone's really struggling with, I don't know how to share my feelings, whether it's a guy or a girl. In 60 days, they can go from, kind of challenge to champion on emotionally fit, where they can identify feelings, they can communicate feelings, they can feel feelings, and they can switch feelings. So it's a whole other conversation, but your intuition's right, whether it's about sex or money or anything. If a couple can identify what they feel, they can communicate that they're going to have a much more connected, validating relationship than people that are what I call emotionally constipated or emotionally unskilled.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to do. Would you agree that like setting the tone by expressing the emotion is an important facet first?
Well, you need to be able to hear each other's hearts, because oftentimes you're not really arguing about facts. You're arguing about I feel disrespected, I feel unimportant. You know, you're arguing about how you feel, and so if you can identify what you can feel, like in 5 sex languages, I tell couples to share 2 feelings a day every day, because I've been doing that for almost 30 years, and in that, I'm able to communicate with my wife what I'm feeling and her with me. And then in the day, if something comes up, we can talk about that.
Yeah, you can talk about it and actually problem solve and really come up with a plan to effectively be, to make a resolution. Well, Dr. Weiss, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. The book is called 5 Sex Languages, and it's a really clever little book, and it's very, very rich. I really enjoyed this one. And it's 5sexlanguages.com. You can email Dr. Weiss, and I keep saying Weiss, it's Weiss, or Weiss. My dentist actually taught me he corrected me all the time on his name.
Weiss, American version, the German version.
So he corrected me all the time.
Weiss,
I guess
W-E-I-S-S.
it stayed with me. info@drweiss.com. Phone number is 719-278-3708. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you guys soon.